The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show. You know, we talk quite a bit because these are very perilous times, ladies and gentlemen, on this program about terrorism and the threat of terrorism and actual terrorist acts that have occurred. And there's this debate quite often about how to counter the effects of terrorism. And, of course, what immediately comes to mind is things like protecting yourself, building better borders, do a better job of screening people when they get onto airplanes and the such. And then the other issues are military action that's discussed a lot, and law enforcement type action, which is also discussed quite often. Not as often discussed, but equally and sometimes more effective is the power of the judicial system, because it is possible to take legal action against terrorists, people who participate in activities with terrorists by perhaps allowing for funding of them, etc. And we found a woman who is extremely active in that regard, and successfully so. Her name is Nitsana. Now, I was told how to pronounce your first name. Nitsana? Nitsana. Nitsana?
Nitsana, yeah.
Nitsana, thank you. Darshan-Leitner. She's the director of Shurat HaDin, the Israel Law Center. The Israel Law Center has successfully frozen, now listen to this, folks, $60 million of terrorist money. Darshan-Leitner is also suing a number of financial institutions that have allegedly conducted business transactions for known terrorist organizations, including a couple of very well-known companies, American Express and UBS. She is also involved in cases against the PLO, Hamas, Hezbollah, and FARC in Colombia. And she follows with her organization the motto of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which many of you know is a very famed American civil rights organization that went after the funds of and bankrupt the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazi groups here in the United States. Darshan-Leitner established Shurat HaDin to economically destroy the terrorist groups in the Middle East. She and her associates specialize in tracking their assets, their bank accounts, and legally and obstructing and restraining their funds. And she is the bane of the existence of some banks and legal organizations and outlaw regimes. Nitsana Darshan-Leitner, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
Thank you, Gary. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and I know it's like midnight there in Israel, so we thank you for going above and beyond the call of duty to be on our program today. A lot of people don't know that you can actually... Yes?
No, fine. My pleasure, I'm saying.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure. Tell us where you got the idea. I know you're an attorney, but where did you get the idea of attacking terrorist organizations by going after the pocketbooks?
Well, during the 90s, we always had contact with terror victims. We were representing terror victims in a high court petitions, going after the terrorists, helping them, helping terror victims to pursue their social rights, legal rights, etc. And then in 2000, when the Intifada broke out, we saw that there must be another way to fight terrorism. We followed the model of the Southern Poverty Law Center in Alabama. As you said, it's the civil rights organization that goes after the Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazi group. And what they were doing is filing cases against this hate group, get judgments against them, and then take the judgment, collecting them by destroying the life of the neo-Nazi group, literally. Going after the bank accounts, going after their assets, blocking them everywhere. And we thought that the same way they're doing to the neo-Nazi groups in the United States, we can try to do the same thing to the terror organizations in the Middle East. So we started filing simple cases against terror organizations, against Hamas, against Islamic Jihad, against the Palestinian Authority, a case against Iran, against Syria, just to see how the courts will relate to this sort of litigation. After all, it was a very, very a new area of law, and we didn't know how the courts will relate to it. And then, like after a year or two, we began to receive judgments and decisions in our favor. We won judgments for hundreds of millions of dollars against Iran. We got the court to admit that the Palestinian Authority doesn't have sovereign immunity and cases can go forward against them in the United States or in Israel. We got liens on money for tens of millions of shekels, and then we got flooded with phone calls from terror victims who wanted to fight back, who wanted us to represent them in court. And since we couldn't do it alone anymore, we established Shurat HaDin, Israel Law Center, a non-profit organization that will take all these hundreds of cases and file them in the courts around the world.
Sometimes you find yourself at odds with the very government that most perhaps fights terrorism, your own government there in Israel. I understand that there is a law that requires the funding of the PLO and even Hamas. A lot of people don't know that Israel sends money over into the Palestinian territories. And during this recent 3-week incursion into the Gaza, you tried to intervene to stop the flow of money, which it's kind of Alice in the Looking Glass-like, isn't it? That Israelis would be sending money to Hamas when they're fighting Hamas. What happened?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the most absurd thing that the Israeli government has been doing in the past couple of months. When